This is Nathanael Garrett Novosel, author of The Meaning of Life. Today we're here to answer some questions that I get frequently about the book, and who's it for, what does it say, and just give a quick Q&A. If you're interested in picking up the book and you just want more information about it, rather than making the purchase, then just ask me. So here we go. The first question is, The Meaning of Life looks like a great guide to finding purpose in life. Who is your target market for the book? That's a good question in terms of who it's for. It's actually a little bit different than other folks. Most people with self-help books will say, oh, it's for everybody. Anybody can do it. They want to be motivational. Obviously, they want more sales as well. Now, I'm pretty honest about this. The audience is anyone who's curious, as I was, about how life works. So, if you're wondering what caused the earth to exist, or the universe, or the human life, or life in general to form, that's not what this is about. If you're trying to figure out what ethics to follow, it's not really I'm not going to tell you what ethics to have. This is someone who wants an objective, scientific perspective of meaning in life. We identify the 8 drivers of humans' sense of meaning and purpose. We go through all the science behind it. We use examples from thought leaders and philosophers and everybody else supporting the evidence that actually science says as well, and helps people to use them to find a more meaningful existence. So it's particularly useful for anyone who's lost, confused, looking for something more, lacking in direction in life. It's good for those people because unlike, cults or, cult personality leaders and things where, they'll dazzle you and they'll use all those psychological techniques like, that idea of, unconditional love and things and positive regard to, pull you into a philosophy that they hold until they, end up controlling you or whatever. I wrote this book explicitly to be another option, a better option than those kinds of options. So I don't have, some sort of hidden agenda where I'm like, well, I really want everyone to, think like me or, vote like me or do this like me or follow me. I can tell you I have 0 cult followers. I'm not looking for any, don't want to be a cult leader. So it's just for people who have genuine interest in what science can tell us about humanity's sense of purpose. Those people will love it. It's based on fact and science and what you can actually prove. And it actually unifies all philosophies because all philosophies actually have opinions or perspectives on these 8 things that happen to be the drivers of meaning, which is why they're philosophies that people follow, because they actually do hit upon those top drivers. If they didn't, then they wouldn't be very good philosophies then, would they? But most importantly, people who want answers to life's big questions, but don't want the author imposing ideas on what the right way to live, will appreciate this material. And that's what I'm very passionate about, is writing the book with as little, I don't think anyone has no bias, but as little bias as possible. Second question, how did you come up with the ideas and concepts in this book? Well, I studied human behavior, psychology, philosophy, and related fields for decades, trying to understand it all. When I started noticing patterns across both the philosophical texts and the psychological studies I was reading, they all kind of had some similar ideas as to how people find meaning and purpose in their life. I realized that I stumbled upon something that everyone would want to know about, an ultimate formula for the meaning of life, or a meaningful life. It was very important to me, though, that all my concepts were understood scientifically and had very practical guidance so that people can apply them and they didn't have to take my word for it or take it on faith. So that was really big for me. But those ideas and concepts, reading for books for 20 years or so of psychology, the fun fact is they popped in my head when I was leaving my company. I was switching jobs, and I was thinking about what speech I would give, and I was like, oh, to be inspirational about how to be successful in life, and I was like, well, what would I say to them? I've studied for 20-some years on this. What would I say? And all of a sudden, I was like, well, life is really about... And I started defining these concepts, and I would just give these short explanations of these concepts and how they worked, and that's how I was gonna That's how I was gonna impart my wisdom. But I never actually, funny enough, I never actually gave that speech. But it led to me writing the book. So, you know, my speech is a 360 page dissertation on how to find meaning in life. So hopefully that's much better than a 3-minute fluffy speech to my soon to be former colleagues back in, what is it, 2012 or whatever. Next question. What will readers get out of your book? Well, if they are lacking a sense of meaning in their lives, they will have they will have an identified list of growth areas to pursue, and then they can build a complete plan to get started. That's what they're going to get out of it. They'll have, these are the drivers of meaning, so I have to find how these apply to my life. So what growth areas matter to me? How do I build desire? How do I build belief? What experiences do I need to have? And the back of each chapter has a list of questions to help you actually think through it, so that you don't just go, oh, that's some interesting stuff, I'll keep it in mind. No. Answer questions, complete the exercises, put it down on paper, commit to understanding how these apply to you, and you'll have a complete plan to get yourself going. And that's where this book differentiates itself from other personal development books. They usually assume you have a desired outcome, like how to make more money, or the key to success in business, or success in love. They identify a goal. And that's the one thing that always bothered me. Those most successful books assume a certain goal. No, don't get me wrong. If you know you have that goal, those books are better. Period. Full stop. Why? Because if you have that goal, then just read a freaking book on how to attain that goal. You don't need to read a book philosophizing on what makes up meaning if you already know what you want. This book is for people who don't know what they want. Next question. What inspired you when writing The Meaning of Life? Well, a lot of things. The writing and editing book took almost 7 years, so there was a lot of stuff going on there while I was writing it. I needed constant inspiration and motivation because I was always second guessing myself. Can I really write this book? Can I really do it justice? But my first and foremost inspiration was my colleague and mentor, Jitendra Subramaniam. He encouraged me to take a shot at writing the book. After I explained it to him, which is great. Always nothing like getting support from someone who you admire. Early in my writing, I was encouraged by great insights from the work I reviewed to prepare my points. And then I was just as motivated by the not so great recommendations from people who didn't bother explaining why they might apply to someone. All those infomercials like you could be successful with tiny classified ads and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh my God, like, would that really work for you? I mean, it might just work for the guy who was successful and then maybe it would not work for anyone else. And, there are all kinds of things like that. We were like, oh, they're making it seem so easy that anyone can do it. And they're just doing that to get you to buy the thing. And, so, that motivated me just as much. Although one of my favorite books to actually support my my book, because I was writing, growth and experience and desire and belief, and I was going through the list of 8. And growth was the centerpiece. It was the center stage. And I was like, well, I wonder what psychology studies are out there about how growth is key to purpose. And I have to say that the biggest one, the one that always comes to mind, is Dr. Carol Dweck's mindset, which talks about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And I had my book in my head, and I had all the concepts laid out. And it was like, I don't know, 2013, 2014, something like that. And then I found that book. I stumbled upon it, and I started reading it, and I went, oh my God, this is the proof that my list of concepts, this is the number one, the growth. And she literally wrote there, if you have that growth mindset, you're more likely to succeed, you're better in all aspects of life, and blah, blah, blah. And the question is, why is that? And it's like, well, because it's the meaning of life. It's the whole point. So if you have a mindset that's aligned with what the whole point of why you're here, of course you're going to have greater success and more meaning. So that book was always near and dear to my heart, because I read it and was like, oh man, this is right. Like here's the psychological evidence I need to prove it. So of course she's featured in it. But fortunately, I did come up with my list before I read the book, which is nice. Even though I think it was originally published in like 2006 or 2007, but I didn't read it until or hear about it until 2013 or 2014. But that was great. as I mentioned, some of the fallacies being pushed around motivated me not to refute them, though that was tempting to say, hey, everyone else's, these fallacies are terrible, but rather just to provide the better option. I kept advising that at the time whenever I started the book to my to leaders I was talking to, be the better option, be the better option. Here I am contemplating writing a book that was going to tear down other things. And it's like, dude, you just tell everyone else that they should be the better option. Here you are just, thinking about criticizing when it's like, no, be the better option. So I wrote a book that stands for something, that provides answers for you. And I only use contrast where I want to explain where the differences between one way of thinking and another way that might not be perfectly aligned. But I try not to disparage anyone or anything in the book. And then finally, I'd watch documentaries and things while I was writing the book, like Daryl Davis, Cassie J. There were a lot of these cool documentaries that like people doing things that were different from the mainstream, and man, they had to fight hard, and they got a lot of blowback for what they did. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, a bunch of people are going to think I'm an idiot, and who am I to do this, and whatever, and or read the Bible or whatever. It's like, yeah, I did read the Bible. And so like I expected a lot of that. So seeing people like that put things out there and facing the blowback, speaking the truth and things, I was reminded that everyone can make a difference. When did you decide to become a writer? Well, I actually decided to become a writer September 2009, because it was I'll never forget that time, because I actually bought my first MacBook Pro. With the justification, because it was a little bit more expensive than other laptops, that I used it to write a book. Unfortunately, the first one I wrote, or at least the first outline I wrote for the book, well, it wasn't wrong, was just criticizing. That's what I mentioned in the answer to the last question. It wasn't putting forth a good alternative. It was saying, hey, this belief is silly or dumb, or this is wrong, and here's why, and using analogies and things, very disparaging in many ways to other people's beliefs. And I'm very glad I didn't move forward with that. I think some people know, I've told this before, I've kind of done a whole 180 on spirituality and faith and those sorts of things in doing my book. I was raised, I was Methodist and then Catholic, but then I kind of became atheist. And I was on the borderline of becoming what they call a new atheist. I'm going to rephrase that because terms mean different things to different people. An arrogant atheist, where you get in your face and tell everyone else that they're idiots. But when I wrote the book, and then I had the belief chapter, and one of the things that's still up in the air for me is you have to have enough, 1 foot in reality, if you will, 1 foot in the possibility, right? So you kind of have to balance, because you can't jump off a cliff and flap your arms and fly. But the Wright brothers worked hard at figuring out a way to fly and did it. So to what extent is belief necessary to achieve amazing things like the Wright brothers in flight, and which beliefs are going to kill you if you do them, like jumping off a cliff and flapping your arms? I don't have a line between those two things, other than you want to be in line with reality as much as possible to protect yourself from harm, but have your beliefs in potentiality, that anything's possible, so you can achieve your dreams. And so I did a 180 on belief, because people who are religious and so forth, I mean, what's the backbone of being religious? Faith. And faith is actually critical to success. Faith in the pure definition is the belief in the potential for a positive outcome without or despite evidence. And you absolutely need to have faith. I mean, Wright brothers and people inventing vaccines and things, they all have to believe. And those vaccines didn't invent themselves, and they didn't exist before they were invented. So someone had to believe that it was possible, even if it didn't exist. So that's when I did the 180. It's like, well, I don't care how you get your faith. You need to have faith in a potential for a positive outcome without or despite evidence. And if that's how you get your faith, then I've completely changed my view on that. So really glad I didn't come out with that book. But yeah, September 2009, I had that outline. It was just another voice railing against bad ideas. and I wanted to think of a better way to articulate good ideas. And so that's what I figured out around, like, it was like February 2013. That's the email I sent with like a early like outline or mock-up, but it might have been 2012, 2013 when I started writing these things down. I do remember doing the first outline of the book in August. I just don't remember if it was August 2012 or 2013. All kind of blurs together. Probably 2013 if I have to remember. That's probably when it was. But yeah, that's when I decided to become the writer of The Meaning of Life, and got some other things in the hopper now as well. When writing The Meaning of Life, did anything stand out as particularly challenging? Well, I kind of already talked about some of that stuff, but to kind of give you a synopsis, I was actually able to create the structure for the book in just a few days. It was just like I had the chapter titles, the quotations, the key principles, the essay section, the questions, the exercises, the outcome. I had drafted that. Man, that outline just came to me like that, and it was beautiful. So that was wonderful. But then I had to go and actually write the essays explaining everything in the book. And I wrote a version, and I wrote an early draft, and just wasn't great. Just kind of bleh. You just kind of like, I'm just going to write what I think. And it's kind of ended up how it came together. Is it just like, just trying to explain this to somebody. So I just was writing it as if I was trying to explain it to somebody. And that's how it came to be. But I must have rewrote the book I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and then the hardest part within the book in terms of chapters, the ethics chapter. Not only was the ethics chapter the hardest to write, it's 80-page finished. I mean, it's a 360-page book, so that's what is it, a quarter, just under a quarter of the book is one chapter, and it's 8. So theoretically, they should all be an eighth, right? So it's twice as long as some of the other chapters. And oh man, was that hard to get right, because it's so hard. My biggest point was to not impart my ethics onto anyone else. So I identify like the universal ethics, like fairness and reciprocity and minimal harm. Those are the 3 near universal ethics. They're universal except when they conflict with each other, right? In which case one has to win. So they're not universal if they can be beaten by each other. But those are the near universal ethics that are scientifically, because we're social species living cooperatively for peace and harmony, to live, thrive, and grow together better than we would if we were all apart. You have to have those 3 things. I mean, if you don't have them, then you can't have trust and cooperation. So I did a lot of that stuff, and I kind of defined all these things about ethics and positive ethics and negative ethics. I mean, heck, I made those up, like in terms of like classifications. I don't think there's like some sort of psychological standard for that, like positive and negative ethics. By the way, negative ethics is don't do bad things, and positive ethics are do good things. That's how I define them. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and man, I have to rewrite that. And man, I don't know what it was. Call it priming or self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever you want. But as I was writing it, all these ethical dilemmas would just show up in my life, and oh man, ethics, this is unethical, or this is unethical, or it was exhausting. And just writing that chapter was the bane of my existence, made my life miserable. But I'm glad I got through it. And yeah, all those ethical dilemmas faded away as I stopped writing the damn thing, which is great. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I had to remove passages that were overly harsh toward other philosophies, or were too sarcastic for the written word, because maybe you wouldn't know if I was being honest and serious or sarcastic. Putting that stuff into writing never works very well. It can cause a lot of problems when people try to interpret your work. I mean, yeah, everything's open to misinterpretation, but you use sarcasm, and then you literally say one thing, but you mean it the opposite, and people take it literally. So I had to go and get rid of figures of speech and sarcasm and all these other things that I put in there. I think I have 1 or 2 jokes in there. I try not to make it funny. I know making things funny and relatable and make people like to read them and sell more books. But I was like, look, I got to get this right. I can always write and record and do all this other stuff and tell jokes, but the book has to be serious, because this is a serious, intimate topic, and I had to suppress my natural temptation to use figures of speech, making jokes, making analogies and things. I know that's what makes stories interesting, engaging, but I just didn't want to risk misinterpretation. We've seen how many texts have been, kind of quote unquote butchered because someone wants to take a new interpretation of them. My favorite being the Constitution, where they say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we know what the forefathers, the founders meant when they wrote that. We know what they meant. They have the Federalist Papers, all these things, but people just look at that thing and say, well, I interpret it as, well, I have a right to everything, and they start listing all this stuff they have a right to, and like other people's labor and things. That's like, no, that's the pursuit of happiness. You don't have a right to be happy. So someone making you sad is not a violation of your rights. It says the pursuit of happiness, and that's the pursuit of growth. You should be able to grow in ways that matter to you. That's what that means. And for someone to just completely butcher it for their own purposes just seems kind of silly. So that was particularly challenging, trying to write things in ways that would not be taken by people and butchered. So I tried that. But yeah, that's the Q&A I got for us today. Hope this was useful. Hope you check out the book, or if you're following these vlogs, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I hope you find these useful and interesting for your life. Again, they should help you find more meaning and purpose, and that's the goal. So thanks so much.